Hello everyone, I am Tacit, and today I'm going to be going over the Gems of War event objectives for the Mor'Zarn, a failing event, which Mor'Zarn is added to the game. So this week has two pretty big things going on. The main one being the Axe of the Horde campaign event is finally concluding this week. So any stars that you still need to go earn to go get all the rewards, definitely make sure to do so. As far as getting them, of course, all you have to do is win an Explore 4 or higher, or spam the easier PvP battles, are the two quickest ways to end up completing it. Of course, this also means if you end up getting the standard pass that we will be able to go get the new mythic. And as of the other patch, this is now the second patch, or the second mythic, to end up getting shininess. So it will end up having up to 2 lower mana costs and a slightly stronger ability, that being 2 more enraged gems. Overall, it's not too bad. There is something in Soulforge this week that's way better than it, which is Wild King. How if you're looking to like build up a skull spam team. But this thing has a pretty decent trait setup, having both Impervious and Enrage Barrier every single time it takes action turn. If you don't get it from this campaign, it will be available in about a couple of months from now. But then the standard drop tables probably by about March, same as his shiny token. But it has a bunch of heavy splash damage, ends up creating 5 Enrage Gems up to 7 if you get it to shiny level 2, which you could have if you have him right now, or if you get him from the pass. And gets the barrier spam and enrage spam every single time you take extra turn. So there are skull spam teams where you might want to end up getting this, even though there are quite a few of them like Wild King that would already have the enrage. It's still nice to offset it if he's not on your team, but also be able to get the barriers. So in case you do end up losing your turn, you have a little bit more durability. And having that with Impervious means you won't have to deal with Elementals as much, since he has immune to freeze, he has immune to stun, all that kind of stuff. So overall, yeah, not that bad. It's more so a utility troop than like a core option that you would run on a team, but there's definitely some skull spam teams where you would offset with it, so not that bad. And the main final reward of the campaign that came out this week. Beyond that, of course, the other big thing is we have, are we on the right page? We have a Vault event weekend. So right over here, we got the second to last Vault event weekend of the year, of course, unless they do an extra one next month, which we don't currently know since we don't know the calendar yet. But this should be the second to last Vault event weekend, so if you want to go get a bunch of loot from that, best time to be doing so. Just Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We have some teams when we go over all the teams for it. But yeah, it's a great time to be grinding within the game, and you can get a lot of gem value, a lot of keys, a lot of everything during that duration. So if you have some time this weekend, definitely highly advise that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday to get to grinding that. Anyways, beyond that, we're just mentioning teams. Let's get into all the teams. So all the teams will be in the description below, as well as pinned comment if you need to get any of them. First things first is the World event. This is Orc restriction for... no, actually just Orc. It's just Red Orc. Oh no, actually just Orc, isn't it? Let me go double check. I think it's just Orc. The main most noteworthy thing, though, is we do have access to skull spam. But yeah, it's just pure Orc restriction, no color, no extra anything. However, one thing that's pretty noteworthy about this event is we have extra spell and skull damage. This is pretty relevant for this location as it has a lot of skull options. I think one of the last times we end up getting this place, for whatever reason, it didn't have skull. But this time it does, which is really important because there are so many things that assist with skull damage here. And it's going to be the main route that you're probably going to want to win with rather than doing spell damage, as the skull damage output options from this place is generally going to be better, at least for the later battles. Early fights you might still go for the just like quick kill, hit everything simultaneously kind of route. But the deeper you get, you'll definitely want to shift a little bit more into skull spam compared to how you normally would. That being said, we're using Eye of Argus spam for the first team. And if you want, you can end up using the new Krog as well in place of one of the Eye of Arguses. Basically, it's using one of stars to cover every color. Eye of Argus is very similar to the one Underworld trip that's pretty accessible, where all you have to do is throw some care shards at it and get 2 skulls. When you get it, it creates 2 skulls per turn. But this creates 2 Doom skulls per turn, which is a little bit stronger in the sense that Doom Skulls, of course, not only do more damage, but they explode everything around them when you end up taking them. So we can also do a little bit of mana accumulation, whereas the one that creates only 2 normal skulls, unless it's cascading something, you're not actually getting any mana from it. Whereas this you are, even if it's not cascading anything. And the fact that it's exploding more area from all the Doom Skulls exploding also gives you more chances that you'll cascade a bunch of value onto the board. So overall, not that bad. Very niche, but in Daemon, Orc, and Groshnak restrictions, which of course Groshnak and Orc being used a lot this week, it is pretty decent. And it's an event key drop table this week in about a 1 in 3,000 or so. But yeah, it's not bad. It's definitely not like a must-have troop, but there are utility options when you end up bringing it out for the extra skull damage. His ability is rather average, just having a little bit of mana accumulation into a big damage poke, but you're primarily using him for his final trait there. And since this is Orc and not specifically Groshnak Orcs, you do have access to some empowers that you otherwise wouldn't have, with First Mate, Axe Blubber being one of the more noteworthy, Lubber, I mean, being one of the more noteworthy ones, and that he does blue to red. And you could feed this into the many things in this kingdom that end up using red, which is almost all of them. So that's pretty much the game plan here. Feeding red, getting all his Doom Skulls down, and just getting mana accumulation into them. As far as the lower rarity team, we're going all in on the double empowered, technically triple empowered in this case. Of course, we're using first mate X Lubber for the red, as mentioned earlier. We're using Mang, the skill. This is from the kingdom as well. You are allowed to use any weapon for this, though for Underworld, you do need to go and use something like Mang, as it is a Groshnock restriction. However, for the World event, you are allowed to run anything you want, but we are still running Mang here. Main reason for this is you get a bunch of attack based on their armor, and because their armor is constantly getting higher, you'll be able to scale the entire time. Just get 1 or 2 Mangs down and you'll have a ridiculously strong attack value, regardless of what game mode you're in, since you're scaling off the enemy's value. And then from there, you just go into your Empower Skull. You have Fist of Zorn for the yellow to Skull Convert, while also giving a little bit of skull attack to your first ally, while also having Hunter's Mark into green to Skull. So overall, it ends up working out really well. And then we just have the other thing to offset mana accumulation, so you can get the Mang, or 2 Mangs a little bit quicker. Next, we have ourselves the Dripping Caverns restrictions. These are a blue-green delve that'll be taking place tomorrow. As far as teams, of course, you're allowed to use any hero weapon for these restrictions, though, for Underworld. But as far as our teams here, we're running just a quick kill Romaine build. Running Romaine for its really high amount of armor boost ratio. Mirage Queen to get 50% mana start on her. And Leprechaun to get everything rolling with its Empower into a bunch of Explode and some free money. And just running a hero weapon that doesn't block Romaine in order to offset damage. But just casting Romaine is your main win condition there. As far as the high rarity team, you can have access to just standard double Tesla. Otherwise, if you are going to go with insta-kill troops, you do have access to Box Strider, so you can go Box Strider plus Leprechaun into any insta-kill troop you want, like Maelstrom Dagannoth, or whatever you have laying around. But this is just the cheaper Tesla build, so I figured I'd show it for this. As far as the Pure Faction team, we do have access to a new troop that I haven't actually been able to show, I don't believe, in a video yet. We were mentioning it during one of the weekly things, but now that he's actually in the game and we could show him in a copy-paste, we have the Black Ooze. This is the most recent 5th edition to Dripping Caverns. It's not that bad. Deals some damage to an enemy with a 10% chance to devour them, which is not great in our normal context, but in the context of Underworld, it's not that bad. It has a boost ratio of 2 times per mana of the enemy, meaning on average it should have a little bit above a 30-ish% chance to devour, which is not great in a normal context, but in the context of a Underworld event, all you have to do is get 1 devour and you basically just auto-win the fight. So the fact that he has about a 1 in 3 chance or so to devour, definitely 1 in 4 or so unless you get really unlucky, you should be getting your devour in a timely enough manner that you should just be able to end up auto-winning. It'll take a little while, but so does all of Underworld. And then we're just going with a bunch of Shoggoth, which is the old meta, just running like 4 of him and just spamming him. He silences and deals a bunch of true damage to the first and last enemy. There's a little bit of mana accumulation, and gains Enrage on a random ally whenever it casts a spell, which of course goes really well with this Black Ooze because it'll be getting Devours, and the Devours will give it high attack value, and that high attack value will be amplified even more by 1.5 times damage, as well as the ability to be able to hit through traits like 50% score reduction. So it should end up working out really well. Biggest issue is Black Ooze just takes forever to get to Devour and it dies before it does so. But beyond that, even if your whole team was just 3 Shoggoths going into the final fight, you should be fine. It'll be a little bit harder than compared if you had the Devour option. But if you only had 2 or 3 Shoggoths, particularly 3, at least of them, you should be perfectly fine for the final Pure Faction battle. As far as the Barbarian class event, this is specifically Orcs from Groshnock, both the restrictions. With that being said, we're basically just running Ruby Weapon, or whatever weapon you have that can hit all enemies very strong, and everything else is just to offset it. We have a little bit of true damage offset off the Immortal Agnok, so whatever our Ruby Weapon doesn't do, he'll end up cleaning up. We then have an Empower Double Skull, so in case there's that 100% revive guy off the Orc, you can simply just Skull Spam it, and kill it out very, very, very quickly just with the Empower Skull there. And that's pretty much all game plan there. Pretty straightforward Thursday class event just for the free 25 gems. Next we have the Underspire teams, which are somewhat similar to the other ones, but the main noteworthy caveats being you have to use a Groshnock weapon, whereas before it was just optional. And beyond that, you can't use Orcs outside of Groshnock for this event, as it's only Groshnock. So you won't be able to use like the Blubber guy from earlier. With that being said, we're still running with the double Eye of Argus. If you don't have double, you can end up using the new campaign mythic if you end up getting him to offset that. Also, if you don't have that, of course, you do have things like Immortal Agnok, which just came out, what, 1 PvP season ago, 2 PvP seasons ago? He's pretty recent. So you've been playing in the last several months. You should have him laying around, pretty much guaranteed. Even if you weren't playing back then, he's still in drop table right now, just not guaranteed like before when he was the featured one within the campaign or within the PvP season. But you probably have him laying around if you've been playing recently. So doing some kind of team just based on that with a little bit of a damage offset should be fine. We're using Mang for our true damage here in order to go get our attack value up. And similar to the low rarity team where we're kind of just building up our Mang and then just having a billion skulls off of Eye of Argus is pretty much the whole game plan here. But the Shoggoth mostly just for the silence and offset our damage a little bit. Also has a little bit of enrage. As far as the lower rarity team, we are running with one of the weapons that's in Soulforge this week. The King Chopper ends up exploding a bunch of red, gives a random stats effect to all Groshnak allies, which of course is your restriction anyways, aside from hero that you can set to anything. And then summons a random Groshnak troop. Not the greatest, but it does end up gaining enrage from one of its extra perks. And of course it does have that constant resummon while giving stats effects to everything, except your heroes. You're probably not running Barbarian class, it's a pretty weak class overall. Similar to the faction team, we're running the Black Ooze in hopes that we get Devours. Or we're running Immortal Agnok, which might seem like a high rarity troop, but as we mentioned earlier, he has been pretty accessible lately. And he is still in the Burning Chest drop table, and we have had a pretty recent PvP season, so you probably have him laying around. If you don't, then it might be a little bit annoying to get him. But basically, just put whatever offset damage source you have here. Even if you just have to go with a second Shoggoth, should be fine. And then we just have Shoggoth. And if you don't have this, you just throw a bunch of Chaos Shards at Dripping Caverns in Underworld, and you should be good to go. You can scrap those together throughout the week. So if you really had to, you could put off doing Underspire until a couple days, wait until the Tuesday faction event, and just a few more days to go by for the dailies of factions. Throw all your Chaos Shards into Dripping Caverns, and you should have yourself 2 Shoggoths pretty quickly. And then you can run that in this team over top of these 2 here. Plus you would have the Black Ooze by the time you have 2 of them as well. So you'd pretty much have the whole team and just run it with the weapon at this point. We're mostly just offsetting with this for the extra damage, as is substantially more damage and mana coverage compared to the Shoggoth. So this is something you can't actually do for the pure faction team, of course, but you can do for the Underspire restriction. Beyond that, of course, as we mentioned, we have a Vault Event weekend. I don't always show the teams for these, mostly because they're the same literally every single time. I guess the Bounty Hunter teams are kind of like that too. But as far as Vault Event weekend, if you need a low rarity team, Quick Kill Rowaned on Explore 4, still really good to go. You'll get all the campaign stars you need to complete out the campaign if you haven't already, as you'll be doing Explore 4, and that's the bare minimum you have to do in order to get stars. Keep in mind, really early on in the game, you might not be able to one-shot with Rowan at Explore 4. Otherwise, you just have to do the highest level Explorer that you otherwise can one-shot. However, if you can, of course, as I mentioned, you'd be able to get all the campaign stars. So if you still be needing any progress on that, you'd be able to get it completed. But yeah, just standard Rowan quick kill team. And of course, as far as the higher rarity teams, we have ourselves the Nomapalooza team, which uses Sister Superior Dust Devil with double Ironhawk, which is also the cheaper version of this team if you don't have a third Ironhawk. And of course, for the actual verse farmings, in order to do those Paloozas to begin with, you would end up using just a single Dust Devil into triple Ironhawk. This allows you to one-shot Explore 12. I mean, sorry, Explore. I wish. Could you imagine? One-shot Explore 1. Could you imagine if this thing one-shot Explore 12? That'd be crazy. Which is the quickest way you could ever win in the entire game. You generally just go to some place like Cinema Mirage, or the other one that's pretty good normally is Wild Plains. Any of those one-shot locations. I believe those are the only 3 at the moment. Cinema Mirage, Wild Plains, and Droxzoom. Or the last 3 that could still be one-shotted. Something came in Blackhawk that made it not possible. But you basically just go here, go with your quick one-shot team, and you'll be good to go. I think this is the same team that we have up there. Yeah, it is. Perfect. So just grab this, go and clear it out, and it gives you the quickest wins ever. Which, of course, when doing a Vault Event weekend is the only thing you care about is winning quickly in order to go and immediately get the gnomes, which you actually got there immediately, even though it's not a Vault Event weekend yet. It's starting on Friday. But, of course, during the Vault Event weekend, gnomes will be a lot more common, and the only thing that really matters is how quickly you end up winning a battle. It doesn't matter about how hard the enemy is or anything else like that. It's more so just about cycling through battles, and the more battles you can cycle through, the quicker you'd end up being able to go and progress through that. Yeah, that's pretty much everything with that. Beyond that, if you haven't already claimed everything from Legends Reborn, you can still end up doing so. We still have several days left. Looks like until Friday or so, you can go and reclaim everything. So if you still need to go do any progress with that, as far as if you want to go and spend the gems to go unlock the better perks here, if you weren't able to afford it last week but still have some laying around, you can always repair it all once the Vault Weekend comes at that exact time anyways. So spending the rest of your gems on that shouldn't be that big a deal, in the sense that you'll just be able to go replenish it this weekend. So definitely highly advise doing so if you haven't already done that for this little blue column here, as all the rewards are huge for 1,350 gems. Is 100% worth it, just for the Imperial Deeds alone, not even counting everything else. That is also really good that you're getting along the way. So definitely don't forget to go and clear that up. With that being said, Soulforge. So Soulforge, we actually did get a new one this weekend. If you're on PC Mobile, we did get one that wasn't already there. It was one of the old PvP troops. It was a pretty useless one. So from a usability standpoint, it's not really that relevant. But, you know, from a completionist state, one of them did actually roll around during this mechanic. So definitely keep an eye out on, you know, Friday once it ends up resetting those weekends. There's been some pretty decent ones that sometimes cycle around. But the most recent one, at least on PC Mobile, being one of the old dead content PvP troops. But it was the first time I ever rolled around. So this fills up the roster a little bit. So we have two things in Soulforge this week that are somewhat relevant, Wild Queen and Wild King. Though if you were to go for one or the other, it is 100% Wild King. We were actually mentioning him earlier. It's kind of funny that he coincidentally is available this week, as he's basically stronger than, or not basically, he is definitively stronger than the current campaign mythic. So if you feel like you're missing out on that campaign mythic, no worries. Wild King is better. So just scrap together 4,000 diamonds as Vault Event weekend, and you should be good to go. He enrages all allies, which in itself is already really strong, and then gives them a bunch of attack, which is already pretty decent. If this was all that it did, though, it'd be pretty underwhelming. But it then gets to create a mix of yellow and skull. So he basically makes every single troop on your entire team, all 4 of them, into a skull-oriented troop, regardless if it has any traits at all to help with skull damage. So your first slot dies, your second slot is just as strong, your second slot dies, your third slot is just as strong, so on and so forth. The big issue with a lot of skull spam teams is generally they buff up only one troop. Even Wild Queen, you could see that, where it only ends up buffing up your first slot troop. Because on most skull spam teams, you know, you just get one really beefy troop, and then it kills out everything, which is generally how skull spam works. However, when it comes to Wild King, he makes every single thing on your team just as strong. All 4 of them. So if your main skull spammer in first slot dies, that's a little unfortunate because it might have had like 3 times skull damage or something else, some kind of other mechanic that was really decent. But everything else below it gained all that attack, all that enrage. It is still really, really strong for your entire team. So it's not as dependent as one single troop being alive for skull spam to end up working. You could end up losing 1, 2, or, you know, about 2 of your troops even up to. And your skull spam team would still function really well with him, as he just needs something alive in order to keep getting that value over and over again. Compared to the most recent mythic that came into the game through the campaign pass, though, his traits are a little bit worse. He does get to start with Skull Storm, which normally gets overwritten by the enemy, but if you can get some value from it, it's not that bad. His final traits is a little bit extra magic for wild folk. Nothing really too out there. His trait setup is definitely a lot worse than the other one, compared to if he had like Barrier and Rage off a final trait would be insane. Well, I believe he had Impervious into a Barrier and Rage. So his traits are a little bit worse, but his ability is substantially better, being one of the strongest few skull spam abilities in the entire game, potentially even arguably the strongest in the entire game, with the main exceptions being things like Zolgoth and a few other things that are kind of in that category. Even Lord or Slaughter, I guess, would kind of be in competition for that as well. But it is very high up there since it makes every single thing on your team equally as strong for skull capability. So if you're looking for running skull spam builds or wanting something stronger than the current campaign mythic, yeah, Wild King is the main way to go there for any kind of skull spam build in the future. As far as weapons, there are a handful of them that are maybe worth considering. We have Doomed Codex, which is Brown Book. Very situational these days, but does still get used occasionally for things like Guild Wars and a few other things like that. But for the most part, it's a little bit dead content these days. Definitely not as required compared to in the previous Guild Wars system to end up having it. But it might still be something that you want to get utility-wise if you haven't picked up in the past. Earth's Fury is a pretty interesting option. It's basically like Mang, but it does less per troop for attack value, but it gives it to your entire team. One issue with Mang, of course, is it only buffs one single troop. We kind of mentioned this earlier with Wild King compared to Wild Queen. But this is basically the Wild King version, I guess, of attack buff, in the sense that it will armor tier the enemy and boost ratio off of that, so you'll always be able to upscale with it. But instead of giving it all to your hero, it evenly distributes it to your entire team at a 3-to-1 boost ratio. This is more overall attack than how much you're getting from Mang. But of course, the attack per troop is way lower compared to something like Mang that's going all in on your hero. It is situationally good. Main instances you end up using this is kind of in early game when you do have something that's really good. Let's say like Web Spinner. There's triple damage against almost everything in the game, as long as you don't have immune to web or poison. But it does triple damage to a lot of things, so in that kind of situation, using Earth's Fury in order to boost it up is a little bit better than having your, hero and with Mang just doing everything. But the main caveat being you don't have access to like Barrier Brown or anything like that. But overall, it's very niche, but it's a good weapon to have. There's some times where you run it instead of Mang, and it's a really good early game progression weapon, like early mid game kind of thing. It does fall off a little bit because you do eventually get things like, you know, Wild King, which basically does this, but without the upscaling thing, but with auto extra turn, or not auto extra turn, but, you know, with extra turn potential, a lot of mana accumulation, everything else, compared to Earth's Fury, which has basically none of that, other than, like, the one brown gem it gets to create. So overall, it's mostly an early to mid-game weapon as an offset for Mang, as there are situations where you'd want Earth's Fury over Mang. Very rare, but it does come into play. Beyond that, basically it's any of the explodey weapons if you're getting it. Like we showed King Chomper for one of the teams. It's really good for a Groshnock restriction. You don't really use it outside the context of this week. But in the context of this week, it is really good for both the current world event and most notably for Underspire, where it's even better because you end up getting the extra dip value from the fact that everything on your team is Groshnock except for maybe your hero. So you get a lot more value there compared to Orc Restriction, where a lot more of the team might not necessarily be that. Though I believe there is an Orc Explodey weapon somewhere's in all this mess. Not sure which one it is, but somewhere's in here is an Orc Explodey weapon, I'm pretty sure. So if you do want to go down that route, there is that thing. I think it's Wallhack, I think. Yeah, this is the one for Orc. So if you wanted for Orc, Wallhack's the other one. But I do feel like overall, this one doesn't get Enraged, I don't believe, on ability, whereas King Chomper does. So I feel like overall you're going to get better value from this. Groshnock is more likely to cover everything, and it has slightly better perks compared to that of the Wallhack one. But either or is really good utility, just explodey mana accumulation weapon for this week. And of course, the nice benefit of Wallhack, I guess, is the fact that you could use it outside the context this week. Though most kingdoms don't have enough orcs to really justify using this out of any context other than a orc restriction like this week. Anyways, beyond now, so do I need that pet? I don't think I do. Okay, just making sure. I always keep seeing so many weird pets now because, of course, ever since the most recent patch, you get like a ton of cosmetic pets here. The problem is I feel like we only get cosmetic pets now because the guild's trying to get them all up and everything. That I feel like I never see boost pets anymore. Almost causing like the inverse problem where you get all the cosmetics now but none the boost, whereas before you got like all the boost pets but none the cosmetics. It's like completely 180'd itself. Anyways, beyond that, oh yeah, I need to go use all the Volkeys. We got a Vol weekend this weekend. I'll go use those. Oh yeah, as far as other events we have going on this week. Tuesday, faction event for Dripping Caverns. We went over that earlier, green-blue restriction. Wednesday, we're getting the one of the Groshnock pets. Thursday, we have Barbarian hero class. Very underwhelming hero class. For the most part, you would really only just get it up for completionist sake and for star levels. It is a really bad hero class that you'll pretty much never touch over other options. Even in a context like this week, I don't think I showed it for a single team. It's just not worth running. Even if you're running the 50% Orc Troop, which also I didn't actually show for any team, but the 50% Orc Troop, even if you're under that context, you'd barely be running it. In that context, maybe you'd bring it out for a little bit of stats, but it didn't only gain a really high amount of attack. So for the most part, not really too needed. And then Friday, we end up getting the Vault event weekend, as we mentioned. And we already were able to see this earlier, but of course the Christmas event starts in 4 weeks from now. So you'll be able to go earn everything for that in somewhat soon. Obviously be coming around a little bit closer to the holidays there. Anyways, beyond that, what have we still not covered? We covered the Horde event there with the really high skull damage that we get from the gem there. Oh yeah, did we show the score? I don't think we showed the score. Luckily the scoring's been really easy lately, but it does the 3 battle, 5 battle, 6 battle thing. But the most notable thing is just don't do Lava Elemental, aka this one right over here. This one. Just don't take the blue one. Luckily, they've been doing this a lot lately, which is rarity order. They've done a lot of really weird things with Horde events in the past, but they've been going a lot easier with it, where it's just don't do lowest rarity thing. Sometimes it's been very convoluted in the past, but they've been on quite a streak for the last year or so of just really straightforward, just don't take lowest rarity option. You should be perfectly fine for completing out the event. Due to how the battles work with the double shift, you might technically want to also remember to not do Hydra if you can, as there are going to be some situations, particularly in the phase 2 for the 15th to 30th battle, particularly 16th to 30th battle, where you end up having a situation where you might go deep enough where you also need to go and ignore the Hydra, but the amount of point difference is going to be very trivial, so as long as you remember, just don't take the Lava Elemental, the blue lowest rarity one, you should be perfectly fine. But you might also want to try to avoid the Hydra if you really want to min-max from your 15th to 30th battle, or 16th to 30th, I mean, during that second phase of 15. Anyways, beyond that, chests. So, of course, we have event key drop table for Groshnock. Is it worth opening event keys? No. As you're looking to upgrade the kingdom or anything like that. Or if you really wanted that Groshnock. I mean, the Eye of Argus, I mean. But beyond that, yeah, it's a pretty skippable week. Orcs have always been pretty underwhelming. Definitely a typing that could use a little bit of a refresh, especially with enrage mechanics, bleed mechanics, and similar things like that. But as far as the kingdom is concerned, things that are not in the drop table, if you were to go use event keys, are the Ogren. This is only from the Seal Key drop table. The 5 faction troops from Dripping Caverns. Those are only from throwing Chaos Shards at Dripping Caverns faction. The 2 Tarot cards of 10 of Runes and King of Swords. 10 of Runes is in the Vault Key drop table, which of course you can get Vault Keys for this weekend. And King of Swords is currently unobtainable. It is money locked. You can only get it from the current campaign pass. This will be in the Vault Key drop table in a few months from now, by about February or March or so. But at this current moment in time, it is not available. It is money locked. It is not currently known, I don't believe, if it's going to be used for anything. I don't know. Did it pop up in Soulforge? They always do that like so randomly sometimes. If there's like something you can craft out of it or not. They used to do it almost every time, but lately it's been very sporadic if they do something for it. I'm not seeing anything here from what I could tell. Actually, I guess I would say new. So yeah, they definitely didn't add one then, because otherwise it'd be very obvious because we don't own it. But yeah, it's very sporadic if they do or don't end up doing anything for a tarot card these days. And more often than not, they don't end up doing anything for it. And this season seems to be the case as well. But yeah, it is money locked currently, but you will be able to get it in a couple months from Vault Key drop table. And beyond that, the other 2 that are not in drop table includes the Krog Rock's Blood Skull, which is in the same situation of King of Swords. It is in the current campaign pass. We'll be going over him tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on stream here on the channel when we go and do, you know, all the dailies, weeklies, and mess around with him. But yeah, he's not that bad. He's weaker than Wild King in most situations, but he has a really good trait setup. There are some niche situations where Skull Spam team will bring him out for his Enraged Barrier while having Impervious. It's a pretty decently strong combination. Overall, his ability is just way too inconsistent to really use a lot. 7 Enraged Gems is just way too low to end up getting extra turn off of once you shine to level 2, which you'd have from doing the campaign pass. As well as his amount of damage is not bad, but his extra turn follow-up for that amount of damage just isn't that particularly good of a ratio. And 7 Gem Spam for 22 mana cost is still really expensive, even in his best case scenario. So for the most part, just not that great other than for his traits. You'll still use his ability occasionally as like a finisher, but beyond that, you're not really using it that often, as you're probably just giving the enemy a bunch of red mana in most situations there, unless you just really have nothing else to cast on your team. And the other thing that is not in drop table is the Immortal Agnok. This is from the Burning Chest drop table in PvP. He's not the focused one anymore, but he is still in the drop table. Actually, with that being said, what is the targetable thing? I normally don't check this too often. What is the targetable for Epic Burning? Ooh, Ossifer! The other 2 are pretty bad, though. I'm still waiting for the week, though I'm probably not going to have like any burning marks when it actually happens. Where it's like Immortal Ossifer, Immortal Infernax, and like one other one that isn't awful. I'm still waiting for that. But it'll happen eventually. Anyways, beyond that, there's only one thing to go over now. And that is, of course, the new weekly troop. He's unfortunately not worth it. Well, obviously you still want to get a copy of him, but you know, he's just not usable. He gives a bunch of, he's in the category of useless buff troop. He gives a bunch of life and armor to an ally, which I'm really surprised they didn't do attack value here. Boosted by enraged gems, and if they're already enraged, barrier them. If this was like a life and attack, this could actually be kind of useful in the context of his kingdom, because so many things end up gaining enrage, so you'll be able to get the barrier with it as well, be able to get all the stats up, get the attack buff going. But the fact that it's life and armor instead of life and attack just really makes this not worth running in most situations. It does have a brown link, so you might get some value from that if you're plopping 1 or 2 onto a team. For some, like maybe the Thursday class event, if you're going like Black Manacle route or something similar. Even Ruby Weapon could run with that if you really want to. But yeah, he's basically in just the category of useless buff troop. He was close to being niche situational, but the fact that he doesn't get to do attack buff boost there in a kingdom that is pretty dependent on the extra attack value is very, very unfortunate to his overall viability or lack thereof. Anyways, guys, that'll wrap it up for now. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful week. Don't forget to finish out the campaign as a final week to go, and that's not the campaign. The campaign as is the final week to go and earn all the stars from everything in the game. Most notably, explore 4 or higher, or just spamming out PvP. So if you haven't already finished that out, still plenty of time. You could even earn all 1,000 in a week if you truly had to. It would take a while, but it is possible if you're just coming around this week. Anyways, guys, hope you all have a wonderful week. We'll go over everything else on stream tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I'll catch all of you guys later. Goodbye, everyone, and thanks for watching.